Hey everyone, it's Joanne. Today I'll be doing the TBR book tag. So I've done this tag previously in the past, like a few times. I'll leave the last time I did this in the corner so you guys can check it out. It's basically just talking about my TBR, and I just thought I would do it again because I had a lot of fun doing this tag previously. So let's get to the book tag. So the first question is, how do you track your TBR pile? I usually, when I do track my TBR pile, I usually try to someone's texting me. So usually when I track my TBR pile, I always try to list like all the books that I own and try to organize them just a bit. Like I put all the sequels in one category and TBR beds in another category, etc., etc. So I do track my TBR that way. I know I've done it differently in the past, but lately I've been trying to categorize books based on like what book series I'm in the middle of, or like what books have on my TBR the longest and which ones have been recently purchased, etc. So that's how I've been organized my TBR lately. And the next question is, how are you determine which book from your TBR to pick up next? Usually I do in different ways, like what books that if I have trouble picking which one, I usually try to pick books based on like whether it's the first sentence that caught my eye, or like the first chapter, or like what sequels or what priority books there are on next on top of my list. And I know that lately sometimes I asked my husband like which first sentence catches is more catchy than others, and same sometimes I ask my mom and etc. So that's how I've been determining which books that I want to read next, but it always depends on my mood most of the time. So the next question is, what book has been on your TBR the longest? I know there's one that I'm still currently working on. I'm not using the same book for the same answer, but I have King Arthur and His Knights by Howard Pyle. This has been my TBR for a very long time, and I'm still want to read it, but I haven't been in the mood for classics lately, but hopefully one day I will read more classics in the new year, but it depends on my mood, like I mentioned. But sometimes I just feel like reading a story that I'm familiar with is kind of intimidating me a bit, but just because of like what if I didn't like it as much as the movie adaptations that I've seen, but yeah, this has been my TBR the longest. And the next question is, what book has been recently added to your TBR? And book that I picked is Gotha Kana by Rue Nix. And I picked this up just because not only like it has a really cool book cover and sprayed edges, it's because from what it sounded like when this was first released last year, it was Beauty and the Beast meets Dracula, and I was like, oh yes, please, because I love, even though I haven't read Dracula, but I know the story of Dracula really well, but mixing that with Beauty and the Beast, one of my favorite fairy tales of all time, I'm like, yes, please. So yeah, I added this was recently added to my TBR, and hopefully I get to this as soon as possible, just because I haven't heard many people talk about it on BookTube. So the next question is, a book that on your TBR that is strictly because of its beautiful cover. I could pick any books at this point, but this one I know that I picked it strictly because of the cover, which is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. I just love these Barnes & Noble exclusive editions more than the original cover. I just thought these are much more prettier than the standard cover, and I know I've read a little bit of this, but then I DNF'd it because I wasn't in the mood for it, but hopefully I'll pick this up because I did buy the sequel that came out last year, the map of other lands or something like that, and I know there's a third one coming out this year, so hopefully I'll get to this and end up enjoying it so I can continue on with the series. So the next question is, a book on your TBR that you never plan on reading. This, like I mentioned in previous times when I did this tag, I feel like it's unfair to pick a book that I would never read because I want to read all the books on my TBR and try to get to them as soon as possible, but sometimes I'm just not in the mood for them. But when I pick a book that I would never plan on reading because, like I said, it doesn't seem fair to me. So yeah, that's my answer to my question, like I did previously. And the next question is an unpublished book on your TBR you're excited for. And the book that I picked for this is The Forest King's Daughter by Ellie Blake, who is the author of the the Frostblood trilogy, which I really enjoyed. And since she had a new book coming out, and I was like, oh yes, I want to read more books by her because I really enjoyed that trilogy so much. So, and I'm trying to remember what the plot was, but I know it was like almost like a fairy tale retelling kind of thing, but I also like the cover, so of course I'm excited for that book. I know this comes out in February, so I know that I do want to get to this, but I don't know when I'll get to it just because of, in the new year, I'm going to be a new mom by the time I'm filming this. It's like a few weeks before the due date, but still I'm really excited about that book either way. And the next question is a book on your TBR that basically everyone has read it but you. There's a lot of books that I would pick for this one because there's a lot of books that have been really hyped, but the one that I picked that's on my January TBR, and I'm trying to figure out when I'll get to it, but I'll try to get to it as much as I can, which is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. I know that this book has been really hyped since it first came out, and same with the prequel, so I feel like I'm the only one who hasn't read yet, and I've heard nothing but good things about it, and plus it's a fantasy about Orc who just wants to open a coffee shop, which it caught my eye for that reason, and I do hope to get to this as much as possible because I want to know what the hype's about, even though by knowing me, a lot of hype books are hit or miss for me, but I just hope this would be one of the ones that is a hit for me. And the next question is a book on your TBR that everyone recommends you. This one's tough. There hasn't been a lot of times that someone gave me a personal book recommendation, but I know that a lot of booktubers have talked about this book, so I feel like as a viewer I would say this was been recommended a lot, which is Icebreaker by Hannah Grace, because I've heard mixed things about it, but I've heard the whole series good things about this series overall, and I know this is a hockey romance, and I haven't read any hockey romance. I feel like the last time I've read a sports romance is Romance Book Club, but that's not heavenly a sports romance, but I feel like this is something that I would end up enjoying. It's also on my January TBR, so hopefully I'll get to this as soon as I can, but yeah, I do hope to enjoy this as much as a lot of people on BookTube. And the next question is a book on your TBR that you're dying to read. I know there's a lot of sequels that I'm very dying to read, but this book is because it's from one of my favorite authors, and I DNF'd it because I wasn't in the mood for it, but I'm been dying to read it just because she had a book that came out last year, and then there's another one coming out this year, which is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I've been wanting to read her books in publication order, and I know that I was enjoying the book so far, don't get me wrong, but I DNF'd it because I wasn't in the mood for it, and I know she just had a novel love story, and then now her new release for this year is a music romance, which sounds really cute to me, and I'm like, I don't want to read those before reading this one, so hopefully I'll get to this as soon as possible because Ashley Poston is one of my favorite authors, and I feel bad for not for picking this up and DNFing it, but like I said, I wasn't in the mood for it at the time that I picked this up, so hopefully I'll pick this up as soon as possible. And the last question is, how many books are on your TBR? I feel like with this one, I kind of took a guess because I do write down how many books are on my TBR, but I kind of, I wrote it, back in New Year's Eve of 2023, I wrote down the number of books that I had at that time, and then I just subtracted how many books that I own that I read, and then the books that I've hauled for 2024. So at this time, I'm guessing how many books I have on my TBR is 225, which is more than I usually do, and usually I try to stick to under 200 books on my TBR, but at this time I'm trying to not to add any more books with me being a new mom in a new year, so yeah, I am I'm scared that I have that many books on my TBR, but who knows, I might go through some books on which ones grab my interest still, but that's the number that I'm at for the amount of books on my TBR is 225. So that is all for the TBR book tag. If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up and comment down below what books that you would recommend me, because I would like to know. If you haven't already, click the subscribe button and click the bell icon so you'll be notified when I post new videos. Also, you can follow me on social media like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Goodreads, which all links will be down below for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!